2030 agenda is put out because it's all misdirection. Every single bit of it. They need you distracted. The trucker convoys, and they'll even paint it with a patriotic deal, say, oh, this is all patriot movement stuff right here. And what they're really doing is normalizing the whole convoy, so you won't question when you're in your state and you see 200 trucks moving in a line going in a direction. You won't question that. It's already been planted in your head that this is normal. Oh, that's one of those trucker convoys. Those are patriots. They're about to go do something. What they're doing is creating new fallout facilities, getting ready for the 2040 event. This has everything to do with the 2030 narrative. Because just like in 1902, the elite were gone in the 1890s. They're not going to wait till right before it happens. They're going to already be in position in luxury cities and fallout facilities. They're going to have their gazebos down there. They got their crops down there, manufacturing districts. They've got their weaponry. They've got all the discoveries, libraries that go back thousands of years. Everything is down there. Well, what they're doing is creating underground real estate. The elite will have already been in their underground bunkers 6 years by the time 2046 comes, because they're going in before 2040. Remember, I've explained it to you guys before. There are underground facilities. In 2018, 2019, and 2020, and early 2021, there was underground detonations being recorded by different countries all around the world. Some of those countries weren't in on it. They didn't know what was going on. But scientists have been releasing information about underground earthquakes, and people on Facebook and on YouTube were releasing videos showing that, man, this doesn't even make sense. They're all at the same depth, and the detonations are the same magnitude. Slight variations. It wasn't making sense. Now you have a clique of individuals who are on YouTube spreading absolute disinformation. Do I believe that they thought they were telling the truth? Absolutely. And that lie was that the good guys were taking out deep state facilities and rescuing children and then detonating and blowing those facilities up. Absolute lie. There isn't that many children in the world to account for all those detonations and all those facilities. This huge picture was carried on, and many YouTubers picked up the torch without any evidence, without any way to verify, just relying on the 3 or 4 guys that were all saying this, and woman, that were all saying this. So yeah, it's ridiculous, but that never happened. It never happened. There were no rescuing children underground. There was nothing. The elite, the military industrial complex, on the surface, they're playing war games, and the media is providing the distraction. None of this stuff's really real. None of it at all. People die, but that's what the elite do. They don't care about the people who die on the deal. They care about the overall game. And as long as the masses are completely fooled by the game, they won't look deeper. Those detonations were getting prepared. They're preparing whole biospheres. There's a lot more real estate underground than there is on the surface. There may be a 2-mile area on this thin skin that we inhabit, and we have to spread out wide. We can't go up, but we can go down for hundreds of miles. We can build cities and pancake them. We can have more infrastructure underground and more ancient and not even know it today. So they need caverns down there. And what they do is they find limestone caverns that are already there, and they detonate them and they make them bigger, because 6 months later, they can send crews of workers in there. They're getting the workers from the surface. But the cover story is all immigration problems and all kinds of border issues and all that. But those people, once they disappear into government and military buses, they're not released into the cities. They're taken to places where they work. Those areas are taken out, they're carved out, and they're building these gardens. They need underground forests. They need underground infrastructure. They need all these things. It's not just housing that's needed. They need everything that's on the surface needs to be replicated underground. That requires thousands of detonations. That requires demo groups to go in first. They knew they only had 20 years left, so they began that program. Now they're sending vast amounts of material to all these underground facilities. And a lot of these, like trucker convoys, a lot of these materials aren't for the future. They're to fill the commissaries up for the workers that are out down there right now, civilian and military. Don't think for a second that the military industrial complex is stupid. Military intelligence is on top of the Phoenix deal. I guarantee it. And they're also very, very clever in the ways that they get the material that they need. Most of the people listening to my voice will probably live right through it. I do feel sorry for Asia. Asia's going to get it bad. Highest concentration of people in the world, and the highest concentration of Phoenix fallout will be located in that part of the world. As far as the United States goes in 2040, New York City and the Gulf Coast are going to be taking the most. Contrary to popular belief, don't think California is going to take as big a hit as you think. That's not coming until 6 years later. Then there won't be there won't be anything on the other side of the Rockies, and the Rockies will be islands. But Appalachians too. Now, what I see is that when this event occurs in mid-May in the year 2040, in North America, there's going to be some destruction, but that destruction is going to be minimal compared to the main body of people. However, it's going to wake people the F up, because the news, although the infrastructure is collapsed and communications is down, the news will filter in of the epic, massive destruction that has gone through Asia, the Orient, all the way to the borders of India. Not the interior of India, but the borders. So we have the news will filter in within 3 to 6 months. People will generally everywhere have a good idea that, hey man, this we're talking about almost over 1 billion people, man, just wiped out. So or almost 1 billion by that time. What we're dealing with here is a mass migration. Nostradamus explains it better than anyone. We also see it in the isometric projections. There is a mass population emptying from America, which is the same thing that happened in 3439 BC when the Anuna appeared in the ancient Near East. It is the exact same thing that happened. I've released videos on this. When the Great Flood, the day the sky fell, the collapse of the vapor canopy, the birth of the sun calendars, when that happened in 2239 BC, the same thing happened. A mass exodus from North and Central America into the Mediterranean and parts of the Near East. History repeats itself, but with variations. I believe that our sky maintains very hidden mechanisms that are sometimes exposed, like in 1561, in other dates in world history, when all of a sudden all these things appeared in the sky. People didn't know what they were, didn't have any frames of references for it, and we have woodcuts to prove it. We have actual images of what people were looking at, but they didn't know. Not talking about UFOs, I'm talking about machinery in the sky that is inexplicable, that is hidden today. Between cataclysms from 2040 to 2046, there's going to be a mass exodus, because when the May 2040 event occurs, the Americas are going to be shoved 30 degrees south. The other side of the world, whether it's a flat earth map or whether it's a globe, it doesn't matter. The other side of the world is going to be shoved 30 degrees north. This makes the Great Pyramid in Egypt at 30 degrees north latitude today, right there at the edge, 108 miles away from the coast of the Mediterranean across the delta. It makes it the center axis of motion. The Great Pyramid will not go north or south or east or west. It will absolutely stay in exact position, and it will turn. The Great Pyramid being the center of motion, well, with the whole world now knowing, oh shit, another cataclysm is coming, it's time to gravitate toward the one area of the world that has never been totally destroyed. Everybody's going toward Egypt and Israel. That little area right there, center of motion, the least amount of destruction. And that will also hold true in 2046. In 2046, that's going to be one of the safest places in the world. Now, I understand that the sheer volume of material that I have read and documented through my life is probably not going to become anyone behind me to verify and check all this stuff. It's just not going to happen. You got lives, you got bills to pay, you got families to raise, you got all these things. You weren't in prison for years and years doing nothing for 12 to 14 hours a day, researching and data mining. I get that. But it warms my heart to see so many people actually take up the torch and start doing these things on their own instead of just relying on me to do it for them. I was raised in libraries because one thing that my mother did is she forced us to go to public library. And every single week, I had to check out 2 books. One of them had to be nonfiction, and I had to give a report before I was able to check out 2 more books. We went every week, and the other book could be fiction. That was my reward for reading the nonfiction. So we weren't allowed to watch TV unless it was after dinner and it was with the family, and it was always 1 or 2 programs. Then it was homework and to bed. I lived a very, very structured life. It was Puritan pilgrimism, and I rebelled from that. But it did instill, you're right, it did instill in me this librarian attitude, this want to absorb a lot of data and information. Many of the older prisons had these massive libraries, these 180 and 90-year-old prisons, and a lot of those books were boxed up and they were supposed to make it to new prisons. But humanitarians on the outside had other ideas. They donated truckloads from schools, high schools, and colleges that had closed down or been foreclosed on in Texas. All those libraries were boxed up and volunteers brought those books to the prisons. So the new prisons got all these books from all these libraries, whereas all the older books that were in prison already were boxed away and put in storages in different prison units. And because one of my jobs for the unit was SSI, I was supposed to catalog everything that was in every cubby hole in every prison, all the storages, all the basements, everywhere, all the old cell blocks that had been condemned that were now being used as storages. So for years, I just went through all these old buildings and I just collected all these books, and I traded. Once I read books, I traded with all the other prisoners that had very old books as well. So that's one reason why the Archaics data is so unique. The other reason is because I had 26 years to do it, and very few people in the free world have that time. They have societal obligations, family obligations. They're raising families. They're working. They have hobbies, entertainment. They're dating. I never had any of that. All I was doing day to day was reading, absorbing information, taking notes, and sending my notes home. So in a nutshell, that's how I acquired my education, and this is why I'm always telling people on the Archaics channel that you can guarantee that 100% of my data is from original books and reports. I take absolutely no data points or data sets from the internet. Every 138 years, these libraries are being brought back to the surface from underworld repositories. While they're down there, new copies are being made of older texts. Now, somebody else had brought to my attention that in around 1902, Carnegie had funded $45 million to fund over 1,000 libraries. Who does that? Right there at 1902 and 1903. All of a sudden you want to fund. That's not what happened. What really happened was these libraries were preserved underground. These books were brought back to the public because the elite aren't what we think they are. And I have videos explaining that too. Yes, they're humans. They have families and all that, but there are members of the elite, I believe, that are also humanitarians. Some of them are preserving historical integrity because every 138 years they take these prized books down with them. And if their certain facilities survive underground, then they bring them back up every 138 years. And I would like to tell you that this is new, Max, but it's not. In 1962, we found the very first underground facility in Turkey from ancient times. Since then, archaeologists have found 59 more. Do you have any idea how many people could fit down there? It's the exact same region of the world, Anatolia, that we have traditions of a king called Anakos. And that king was made famous in ancient Phrygia, which is the exact same geographical area where those cities are. Anakos became famous because he foretold of a cataclysm that was coming and told his people that you will not survive if you stay on the surface. So he built cities, and the entire population was saved underground. And when the fallout was over, he brought them back up. This happened so long ago that by the time of the Hittite Empire in 17th and 16th century BC, we're talking almost 4,000 years ago, that the Hittites found the first 3 layers of these cities, and there's Hittite graffiti. Archaeologists have found Hittite graffiti all over the first 3 levels, saying that even the Hittites didn't go to the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th levels of those cities. It's incredible, man. We have found even Phoenix Hill in China is another underground. It's called Phoenix Hill. It's called it's called Feng Hu, but it's Phoenix Hill is in China. It has been discovered. The archaeologists are baffled. It could have held 100,000 people easily, and it's an underground fallout facility that was made in ancient times so long ago that not even the Chinese remember it. All they know is the tradition attached to it, and they call it Phoenix Hill. Phenomenon appearing in the sky, and the results happening among civilizations. And we find the date monikers and all these texts. You look at them, it's always the middle of May. There's 2 cataclysmic dates that are threaded throughout the entire history of the world, and it's 2 different timelines, and it's 2 different objects that appear in the sky. One of them I call the Nemesis X object. X just means unknown factor, but it's the Nemesis X object. It appears every 792 years like clockwork. The other one is the Phoenix phenomenon, and it's every 138 years in the month of May on the 15th or 16th, depending upon what hemisphere. I am very specific because once you see the data, you just can't argue with it. I mean, this is it. Every single time it appeared, it was at that exact same time. And it's 138 years on the dot. Last time was 1902, for which I have 5 videos. The time before that was 1764. The time before that was 1626, then 1488, 1350, 1212. I can go 138 years all the way back to about 58 centuries and catalog basically every time it happened. And it's always red rain, red mud, red fallout from the sky. The sun goes dark, the moon turns red. Sometimes gravel and rocks fall from the sky. Cities and civilizations are absolutely buried. There are mass vanishings of people, inexplicable, don't know where they go, what happens to them. Their bodies are not found among the ruins. And every single time, there are baby booms that happened after these events. And these edits and these changes in our holography in the institutions and in governments and economies, these changes are subtle, but they have major impacts. I mean, just in 1902 alone, hundreds of companies appeared that did not exist in 1901. It's inexplicable. I've listed them. Many of my subscribers have even given me more to add to that list. Organizations, institutes, whole weird things that just suddenly appeared in 1902 and then were built upon 1903, 1904. These aren't just any companies. These are the Fortune 500 companies that are running the world today. They had their beginning in 1902. Some of them had their beginning in 1903, 04, 05, 06 because it was basically the same companies, but they're now umbrellas creating sub-companies underneath them. It's still the same organizations. But there's no trace of them in the historical record in 1901, in 1900, in 1899. This is inexplicable. And the same thing happened in 1764. 1764, the entire world was run by monarchies. As soon as the Phoenix phenomenon happened, now all of a sudden monarchies are all being overthrown at the exact same time. The United States appears on the scene, becomes a republic. Republics and democracies took over all the monarchies of the entire world except the crown, except the British crown. So it happened fast like dominoes. The French Revolution was basically the end of that period, the Napoleonic period. But we can go back all throughout time and see this. It's dynamic, these major changes on the world. So this is what made me go into the legends and myths about the Phoenix. There's 2 different protocols unfolding. One of them is every 138 years. One of them is every 792 years. And it goes back all the way 58, 59 centuries. And all the major events of world history are on these two patterns, the Phoenix and this Nemesis X object. I call it Nemesis X because it's an unknown factor. I really don't know what it is. I believe it's a super construction that's hidden in plain sight in our sky, and the vapor canopy is mentioned in many different ways in many different cultures and civilizations. It's a totally different biosphere. It's not like the world today, but the vapor canopy is coming back. That's how the apocalypse will unfold. This is why people will want to die but cannot kill themselves. This is in Revelation. It's also described in 2nd Esdras. Open wounds will heal in minutes. I'm talking about people will be able to hold their breath for very long periods of time. It says killing somebody during the apocalypse means that you're really trying to commit murder because you can't do it accidentally. You got to really go through the motions to actually kill somebody during a vapor canopy. The atmospheric pressure is intense. The oxygen level is fantastic. The ambient radiation that is trapped under the canopy that we are exposed to during that time has people, animals, flora and fauna growing to astonishing sizes. 3 times in the historical record, the vapor canopy has come back, but each time it collapsed after about 10 to 20 years. But when it was here, it started an age of heroes. It started a time period where everybody born under that canopy after that cataclysm was taller, faster, stronger, smarter, and all that. And this is recorded over and over in Hesiod and different traditions. The last time the vapor canopy created an age of heroes was 1687 BC. Before that was 2239 BC. Before that was 3439 BC. This canopy is the reason why the historical record is very, very adamant that we had a period of titans. But this is the same phenomenon that the vapor canopy brings, because the vapor canopy traps this ambient radiation in this increased barometric pressure. And this vapor canopy is an ocean above that is caused by volcanic ash and Phoenix fallout. The Phoenix fallout is red particles and red dust that has organic materials, and it layers the atmosphere. The same time, the volcanic pumice and ash, they layer the atmosphere, traps the ambient radiation. After about a 15-year period, we literally have a mesosphere that is so thick that the entire world during the daytime is a dark purple light. And this has been described. I have videos that cite these sources. This dark purple light makes things grow to astonishing sizes. It has been replicated in Glen Rose, Texas, in a biosphere that they constructed. They used that dark purple light. They increased the atmospheric pressure, and they replicated the mesosphere, and they made insects and fruit flies, beetles to grow 3 times their size and to live 3 times longer, made plants grow big. So they did this in a very small contained field. Imagine the entire world under this vapor canopy. Now your animals, your reptiles, your amphibians, your fish, humans, plants, animals, everything's now growing to astonishing sizes because carbon dioxide rich atmosphere and an oxygen enriched atmosphere and a nitrogen-rich soil, topsoil, has everything growing. So we're talking about a world that gets burned, destroyed, liquefaction, mud floods, red organic compounds falling from the sky. This is what Phoenix does. But it's basically fertilizing a new world. Remember, Phoenix is building a new world out of the ashes of the old. This is what it does. Now, these bad episodes only happen like every 552 years, but that's real iffy. It's here every 138 years, but there was a period in ancient times where every 552 years it was the big one. So I'm thinking 2040 is just going to be in line with basically what the 6th seal of the apocalypse says, because the 6th seal of the apocalypse is the Phoenix. That's exactly what happens during a Phoenix phenomenon. The sun turns black as sackcloth. The air thickens, stars fall from the sky, the moon turns blood red, terrible earthquakes happen, people hide in the dens and the rocks and the caves. This is in the 6th seal of the apocalypse, and it fits the narrative perfectly.